the game. You don't play to just play. Come after me. I'm a man. I'm for you. Can't wait. Let's go.
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show here on Sports Empire Network. Thank you for making us part of your morning routine, whether you are on Facebook or YouTube or you're watching us live right now on Roku TV. We are happy to have you here this morning. I am Chris, and of course, that over there, that is Mo. Mo, how are you this morning, sir?
Doing great, Chris. We are inching our way towards the Super Bowl. We've also got the NBA trade deadline today. So a lot of things going on in the world of sports.
We're going to talk a little NBA trade deadline stuff later on. But Mo, let's start with this. We talked about this a little bit on the show yesterday. The odds in Vegas have greatly fluctuated when it comes to the Chicago Bears and what they are going to do with the number one pick in the upcoming draft in April. The Bears have the number one pick in the draft via the ever-giving Carolina Panthers. The Bears also hold the number 9 pick in the NFL draft. So they have 2 top 10 picks. Obviously, the decision starts here. What do we do with Justin Fields? If Justin Fields is going to be their starting quarterback next season, it only makes sense they would move off of the number 1 pick up a bunch of more assets, and put more things around Justin Fields heading into next season. If Justin Fields is not their starting quarterback of the future of the franchise, they are most likely going to attempt to trade Justin Fields, gather additional assets, still have the number 1 draft pick, and then take the best player in the draft, whether it be on offense or defense. It's probably going to be a quarterback. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. So the shift has been recently in Vegas, Mo, that they're going to keep Justin Fields. And if they're going to keep Justin Fields, the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, hence, basically, in all likelihood, Caleb Williams, is now going to be up for grabs. Sure, it is always possible that the Bears could just keep the number 1 pick and they could take the receiver, they could take someone for the O-line, but it wouldn't make sense because they could easily trade down 5 or 6 spots, get a plethora of assets as a result, and still maybe most likely get the top 1 or 2 players on their board that are outside of the quarterback position. So if the Bears decide to do that, Mo, if they decide we are going to keep Justin Fields, which means the number 1 pick is now up for the highest bidder, and let me tell you, there is going to be a bidding war if that is the case. The question we're going to talk about this morning, Mo, is who is in striking distance to pull off that move? So let's take a look at everybody within 10 picks of the number 1 pick in the draft. So we're going to go all the way down to pick number 11. Because again, the further you get away from the number 1 pick, the more you're going to have to give up to get up there. And the less leverage you're going to have, because just by default, if you pick 8th, the person who picks 3rd, they already look better than you do. Because they're giving back a 3rd round pick in the first round. You're giving back the 8th pick in the first round. So by default, they're already got a better package potentially than you have. So picking 2nd in the draft is Washington. Now, Washington would love to move up 1 spot. Washington probably would have loved just to have finished with the number 1 pick, and this wouldn't be a conversation because Caleb Williams would be their quarterback. But Washington at 2 is a clear destination. The Patriots at 3 is a destination. 4 and 5 belong to the Cardinals and the Chargers. The Cardinals have already said that Kyler Murray is in their future plans. He also has a contract that I don't think you could trade if you wanted to. So that's a little bit of a hindrance in Arizona. But I think Kyler has proven the way he played the second half of the season, he can be the guy. You got to put some stuff around him, but he can be the guy.
I agree. I think he can be the guy.
And then we all know there is no quarterback change coming with the Chargers.
No.
Herbert is their guy. Harbaugh is their guy.
And they are married.
They are married. They are married, and they're probably both very happy with the arrangement. So 4 and 5 are off the table. At number 6 is the New York Giants. Mo, are we going to put the New York Giants into this conversation? Because you can very easily say all the issues that the Arizona Cardinals would have with moving Kyler Murray are the same issues that the New York Giants are going to have with Daniel Jones. The only difference, Kyler Murray's more talented.
No argument here. No, look, the Giants, they're not going anywhere. They're not going to get Caleb Williams.
So we're not going to put the Giants into the conversation. Are we going to put the Tennessee Titans into the conversation? They do have a young quarterback that they drafted last year, but they're going to have, or they do have a new head coach.
Correct.
Does that head coach want Will Levis as their quarterback? Does that head coach want to say, hey, we could potentially be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes? Let's just do a full reset. Are we going to put him in the conversation?
I think they have to kind of be in the conversation because we talked about this. Yes, they have a new coach, but I don't know if Will Levis is his guy. He was already there. Maybe he might be like, look, if you give me Caleb Williams to start with, that is my building block to turn the franchise completely around. I think in the end, if I'm asking what they're actually going to do, I think they do ride with Levis and try to build around him, but they have to at least have the conversation about what they could do potentially in terms of putting a package together to pursue Caleb Williams.
Well, then we are going to put them in the conversation. So we have Washington, New England, Tennessee in the conversation right now. At number 8, we have the Atlanta Falcons. We know they're not happy with their current.
Oh, they're in the conversation. they were in the conversation before everybody else. They were already talking.
So Atlanta at 8. We'll skip Chicago at 9. At 10 is the New York Jets.
They're not in the conversation.
Yeah, they're not, because they're going to build everything they can for one season. It's going to be a one-season run with Aaron Rodgers. They're not thinking about the future. They're not thinking about next season. They're not thinking about 2 or 3 years down the road. The New York Jets are going to sink everything they have into putting the best team on the field for next season, no matter what it does to hurt them down the road.
Right.
And it might. They might salary cap might destroy them later on down the road. But
if they eye on the prize, Chris, it might destroy them for the next 10 years. But if they win that one Super Bowl, the trade-off is worth it.
That is correct. And that was the entire reason for bringing Aaron Rodgers to New York, was we have him for 2 years. If we can get one ring in 2 years, that doesn't matter. Everything was worth it. Now that's truncated a little bit. Now it's 1 year, and you're hoping if great things happen this 1 year, he'll come back for another year or two, but that's not a guarantee. So it's 1 year, and you put everything into it. They're talking, Devontae Adams might be coming over. We've cleared numbers so he can have his number. They're gonna fix that O-line. The O-line is god awful. They got a lot of work to do, but drafting a quarterback is not going to be part of that. So that brings us to number 11, the Minnesota Vikings. They don't have a quarterback right now.
They don't, and you don't know what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins going forward. I'm going to say they should be in the conversation. I don't know what kind of package they could put together, but they should be in the conversation.
Let's move down a little bit further to the Denver Broncos, number 12.
Well, if it's up to Sean Payton, they're in the conversation. Because and I know who's not going to be their quarterback. So
Correct.
I look, they might be willing to mortgage their future to get, if you get Caleb Williams, you believe he is what he is your future. So, sure.
Below them are the Las Vegas Raiders.
They don't have a quarterback either. I don't know what they could do, but I mean, the funny thing is you keep saying who's in the conversation. We could keep adding, because you could just find every team that don't have a quarterback. The Raiders, I'm sure, would love to move up some kind of way. Absolutely. He is Caleb Williams. If you've read anything about him, he would be perfect for the Raiders. I don't know if they would be perfect for him, but he would be perfect for the Raiders.
And then the last team we're going to talk about is number 14, the New Orleans Saints. They do have Carr.
Well, you know how I feel about Carter, and if it was up to me, they'd be in the conversation. But maybe they think they're set. Carr is a proven commodity, so don't get me wrong. He's a competent quarterback. Would I call him a franchise quarterback? No, but I think they would be a long shot.
So that means our list of logical potential, unless something comes out of right field, some package that we did not see possible because they are below the New Orleans Saints in the pecking order. I mean, the Colts are 15. They already have a quarterback. Seattle is 16. They don't have one, but 16 is pretty far back. And now you're getting into a lot of picks where I just don't think you have, the caveat, the sway to get up there.
Right.
So you're looking at Denver or Las Vegas at 13, Denver at 12, Minnesota at 11. But really, we're probably looking at Atlanta at 8, maybe Tennessee at 7, New England, Washington. Let's go with those 4. Washington,
I would narrow it down. Yeah.
Washington, New England, Tennessee, Atlanta. Those are all top 8 picks. They're all going to draft before Chicago's already scheduled second pick in the first round. If you are those 4 teams, is there any one of those 4 teams where you'd have to give it all up, Mo? You would have to give it all up. Obviously, Washington and New England are probably going to be in the driver's seat. And if you're Chicago, you're hoping that they just bid the crap out of each other, because those are going to be your best 2 packages. So if they just bid the crap out of each other, sure, you'll listen to an offer from Tennessee at 7 or Atlanta at 8 or Minnesota at 11, but they're not going to be able to touch Washington and New England, because if you trade with one of them, you're almost guaranteed to still get the player you wanted, right? So you give up the pick, you're still probably going to get the player you wanted initially, and you're going to get a bunch in return.
You are going to get enough to build up your franchise, maybe for a couple of seasons or more. Look, I think it's going to be, my gut feeling is it's New England and the Commanders. New England, because this is the new changeover, right? This is the new guy, the guy that's following Belichick, Mayo. I have to believe they want to get him out on the good foot, get a franchise quarterback. They know you have to have the next guy in place. So I think New England is going to do everything possible to make this happen. But when you look at the Commanders, that new ownership group that's led by Magic Johnson and a few others, along with Bob Myers, I think they're going to be right there. Like you said, you laid it out. They're going to bid the crap out of each other. Like, they're just going to keep upping the ante like it's an auction. So I look, Chicago, if they don't believe Fields is a guy, it's simple. They're going to keep the pick, move Fields. But if they think he's the guy, and look, I think Caleb Williams. Let me ask you this, Chris: if Caleb Williams is as good as Fields is right now, he hasn't played it down in the NFL, but he's as good, and his ceiling, because Fields has a high ceiling, but Caleb Williams has a ceiling like they're talking about him being on par if he continues down the right path with Mahomes and Joe Burrow and guys of that nature. If you knew that, would you trade that pick, or would you just go, if he's going to be that guy? I know I can build around Fields, and Fields could probably turn out to be, let's say, it's not a bad thing. What if Fields is a 6-time Pro Bowler, a 6-time All-Pro, maybe he wins an MVP and has that kind of career, and we can put the right pieces around him, and we're relevant and we're a title contender for the next 6 or 7 years. That's not bad, but still, knowing what you would know what Caleb Williams could be, would you trade the pick?
What I would do is I would look at which option gives me the best return. So I don't want to get into the conversation, because you don't know. You don't know. You know what Fields is, and you basically know, if you maximize Fields, kind of where you can end up. And clearly Chicago is open to keeping that. They're open to where Fields is and where they think that next step is. And even if that next step is like the end, as far as his ceiling goes, they seem to be comfortable with that.
Okay.
So that being said, it would be fair to say at Caleb Williams' worst, he probably is what you already have. So if you just go by that, now I'm going to ask this question. What gives me the most assets to build out the rest of my team? Is it trading the first round pick and keeping Justin Fields? And then with whatever I get back for that first round pick, I can get A, B, C, D, E. Or is it trading Justin Fields, keeping the first round pick, knowing that I got to step up at quarterback, but also what am I losing on the back end to put around him?
No question. Look, we always talk about quarterbacks being the franchise centerpiece, but who's to say that in that haul that you receive for that number one pick, you don't draft a couple of Hall of Famers at corner or at linebacker or DN, left tackle. Look, you already know where I stand. I think Fields can develop, can get better, but I would trade the pick and build out my roster. I would. I think that the way the NFL is, with the right coach, the right system, I'd go that route. That's me. I'm sure other people totally disagree, but I would, like you said, what I know about Fields is we know he can play at this level, at a high level. His struggle might be consistency, but he can change that. He can get into the lab and improve upon that with the right coach, with the right system, and the right assets around him. And like you said, with Caleb Williams, we know about potential, but that's a deadly word, right? Potential versus what somebody actually is a scary notion. So on my part, Chris, I'm trading that pick. I'm getting that haul that you're talking about. I'm building out my roster.
Mo, not only am I trading the pick, I'm going to try to trade the pick twice. I'm going to get the best offer I can get out of Washington because I only want to move down one spot. So I'm going to make it seem like the Patriots are in it. I'm going to even be leaning towards the Patriots publicly, and I'm going to suck everything I can out of the Washington Commanders. And I'm going to trade them that pick, and they're going to take Caleb Williams, and I'm going to fall down to number 2. And then I'm going to put my list together of all the teams that want the second best quarterback in the NFL draft, and we're going to go round 2. And I'm going to trade away the second pick of the NFL draft for whoever that second quarterback is. Because you can sit there and say, well, the Patriots are going to take the second quarterback. They know you're not going to take them. That's fine. All I need is one team that wants the quarterback the Patriots want, and I will offer that. Come up and get them. Come up and jump the Patriots and take the second best quarterback in the draft. And now let's see what the Patriots want to give me. Because now you're looking at the prospect, if you're New England, of you missed out on 2 quarterbacks.
Correct.
And with the third pick. So you didn't get the trade done for Caleb Williams. Are you really going to let it go and not get Drake May or whoever your second most valuable quarterback is on the board, and you're just going to accept taking the third quarterback on the board?
Right.
I don't know if they will. I don't know. But what I do know, Mo, is they're not going to let a quarterback go by them. So whatever other team I talk to, the conversation is, listen, the Patriots are after us. You know they're taking a quarterback. Are they taking the one that you want? Because if they are, come on up. I'll give them to you. And Mo, if I can trade down to like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and taking a second smaller haul, now I've taken in 2 hauls. I'm still drafting near the top 10, and we're good. We're good. You have so much capital. Now, obviously, you need to do stuff with it. You need to make the right moves. You need to trust your people. If you're just bringing in more picks, you need to trust your people to hit those picks and actually fill out your roster.
Right.
But maybe there's players included in there as well. You never know. There could be a weapon included in there. There could be a wide receiver. There could be a corner. But that's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to flip the pick twice. Because in the top 10, and we just talked about this, there are Washington needs a quarterback. The Patriots need a quarterback. Heck, the Giants could be open to business if we're not talking the number 1 pick price tag, but we're talking the number 2 pick price tag. Maybe now the Giants want to come talk a little bit. Maybe now the Tennessee Titans want to come talk. Sure, that they have options there already, but when they're not mortgaging the entire farm and they're only giving up half of it, maybe they're open to conversation now. Atlanta still needs a quarterback.
No doubt.
The Vikings, the Broncos, the Raiders, potentially the Saints. Seattle needs a quarterback. These are all teams that may not be able to be in the ballpark for the number 1 pick, but maybe they'll come talk to me for the number 2 pick.
No, I like where your head's at.
If I walk out with 2 hauls, plus I still have my 9th pick in my pocket, I'm good.
If you walk out with 2 hauls and your 9th pick, you're Howie Roseman. You're right. That's Howie.
Good.
That's a Howie move. You are better than good. If you walk out with 2 hauls, you're basically going to do that killer thing that I don't know if you remember this. This is back in the day. The Dallas Cowboys traded Herschel Walker to the Minnesota Vikings, and that's how they basically built their Super Bowl team off the back of those trades. Because one, they got you get the picks. But to their credit, and this is one of Jimmy Johnson's strengths that no one ever talks about, great evaluator of talent. And they 100%. They hit on all those picks. Yep. On all those picks. So, yes, I'm with you 100% where your mind's at.
So, we'll see. I mean, obviously, that's a little Madden-esque talk, but it's logical. If you give that pick to Washington, you are once again in control of the next quarterback who comes off the board. And you can literally handpick which team gets the second best quarterback in the draft. So if they trade it to Washington, they should be open to business to do it again. And then we'll see where we land from there. But JG's here this morning, Mo.
JG.
We got a little JG action this morning. We got some things. We got some things to talk to JG about. Let's welcome JG to the show this morning. JG, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Good morning, JG.
JG, we're so happy to have you here. I mean, Mo and I missed you so much yesterday. We were actually talking about you when you weren't even here. We were just hypothesizing baseball topics to discuss with you in your absence yesterday. And the one that we both landed on was the 5-year, $125 million contract extension for Jose Altuve. Jose Altuve is about to enter his year 34 season this year. It's the final year of his current deal, which means that his extension is going to start in his year 35 season, and it's going to run out through his year 39 season. Now, obviously, I have some bias here as a Yankee fan. I hate Jose Altuve. I'll be the first one to tell you I don't like him. I don't like the Houston Astros either. But let's be as unbiased as I can. I understand if you're Houston, the desire to keep Altuve. He is essentially the face of your franchise. But JG, I look at it and I say 5 years, 125 for a guy who's about to turn 34. He's coming off of an injury-riddled season. He's dealt with some injuries the past couple of years. And this 5-year new money doesn't even kick in to year 35. Now, I know we can all name baseball players who have hit well into their mid to late 30s. That's fine. But a lot of those guys that you would name didn't deal with a lot of nagging injuries. They were just your typical just contact hitters. They kept their speed decent as they got a little bit older. Maybe the power went down, but they kind of did their thing. And sure, Altuve could be that. But I look at this and I say, man, this is quite the risk, especially when you look at that Houston roster, JG, and you got some other big names that are a lot younger coming up that you're going to have to pay, and you're giving this much cash to Altuve. I look at it and I'm like, interesting.
It is, and I agree, because we've said, and I said to you guys on Monday, where how the game is getting younger. The Astros are kind of the exception at the moment, and I'm saying at the moment because they are an older team. You do have some young guys that have been coming up, in Jeremy Pena, who replaced Carlos Correa at shortstop. You do have some young pieces that are still there in their late 20s. But you are a bit of an older roster in regards to some of the other teams that are in Major League Baseball. And for Altuve, played 90 games this past season. That was one of the lowest he's had in his career as a full-time starter. And obviously we take out the 2020 season because there was only 60 games played that year. But before this year, the lowest amount of games he played was 124. So you're talking about almost 35 game difference that from his previous career low to what he had in 2023. Now, that's only one season. I think that's what they're looking at. It's only one season. He may not have that happen again. It was a freak. It was kind of a freak thing. He missed some time at the beginning of the year, and he missed some time in the middle of the season as well. But could it be a trend? And that's the fear right now at this age. At 33, going to be 34 in May. As you said, the contract extension kicks in the next 35. Sorry about that. Going into the 35-year-old season, it's going to be it's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard to really sit there and project. Are we going to get the all-star Jose Altuve for the next 5 years? I look at it and say this. I think because Jeremy Pena hasn't turned out what they hoped when he replaced Carlos Correa, they don't have a great option in the minors to eventually replace Altuve. And I think that's the decision that they're making and saying, look, we don't have a turnover to the younger side at second base, but we still do have someone who's an all-star caliber player. We know he'll be an all-star caliber player for at least 2 to 3 more seasons. The last 2 years might be hit or miss. We don't know. But at least we have something in play for the next 2-3 years that buys us time to get a young prospect developed in the minors to be the eventual replacement for Altuve when it gets to the point at that time.
So the Dodgers pull the trigger. Kershaw is going back to Los Angeles. It looked like a couple weeks ago it was dead in the water. It wasn't going to happen. JG, with Kershaw making the move and heading back to the Dodgers, obviously that's going to bolster the depth of their pitching rotation. What does that mean now for Jordan Montgomery? Is it going to be a lock, essentially, that he is going to be with Texas? Because the only other name apparently on the Texas Rangers radar was Kershaw. So if Kershaw is gone, you would have to assume that at some point they're going to make the numbers work and Montgomery is going to sign with Texas because he doesn't seem to want to go back to New York and no one else is really tied to him outside of Texas. And I think Boston threw their name out there for some reason a little bit ago, but that didn't seem to be a serious inquiry. So is it just a waiting game now, do you think, for Jordan Montgomery in Texas?
It has to be. I mean, could you see the Yankees maybe getting involved, or as you said, I think the Red Sox was more smoke and mirrors than really real interest. If the Yankees feel Blake Snell's asking price is just way too high, Montgomery being a cheaper option could be the play for them. But I don't understand what the Rangers are doing. You need another pitcher to pair off with Eovaldi because, again, you don't know when Scherzer and DeGrom are going to be healthy. We don't know how they're going to be when they do get healthy. So getting that pitching depth is important. Is the price might be too high? That might be. Montgomery's price might be still too high at this point as well. So there's going to be negotiating and finagling to get this figured out. But if you're the Rangers, there's not a lot of options that you're left here with a week until pitchers and catchers report. We're a week away from that. So I think it's inevitable that he will end up back with the Rangers. It's just a matter of the finances really making sense for both sides and what they want and what they think the value is before they get to that point.
Not that I'm saying shady baseball practices should be promoted here, JG, but in theory, if you're Texas, couldn't you look at it and say, listen, we need the help the first half of the year. We don't know when our two aces are coming back. Let's sign Montgomery. And then if everything works out accordingly with the other two, come the trade deadline, we could always move him.
Yes. As I'm kind of looking at it this way, and I'm a little bit skeptical because I think it's a little too early to decide this. I almost have a feeling. Tell me if I'm kind of making y'all think a little bit. We remember the Kansas City Royals World Series run they had. They won the World Series against the Mets. And they flipped it around and said, we got our title. We got it where we needed. Now we're going to just all of a sudden start cutting a little bit. We're going to start cutting some payroll. Then, we're back into our rebuild mode from there. I'm not saying Texas is there because Texas has money that the Royals did not have. And because of the new stadium that they built, and it's still a few years old, the money that they've been making out of that stadium is sky high right now. So the finances still are there for the Rangers, but I want to see how this season plays out right now before I make this judgment. It almost kind of feels very Royals-esque that, hey, we got our World Series title. We're good now. We're fine. Now we're going to start cutting a little bit. We're not going to start paying as much money. I know they still have Seager, who's under big money. They have DeGrom, who's under big money. They traded for Scherzer, who majority of that contract is still being paid by the Mets. So that's not really hurting them at the moment. But there's still some money tied into some of the guys they have right there. So they look at it and say, okay, we have too much money on payroll. And at this point, maybe we need to start looking at it and cutting back. I can see that. And if they go to the young kids, and I've kind of talked to you guys about the young prospects that the Rangers have in the pitching side, if we start seeing them a little bit more, I think we're going to head in that direction. That's saying we're not big spenders anymore. We were big spenders to get the World Series. We got it. We're good. We're happy. We're not spending big anymore. I have a feeling that we might be heading that direction for Texas. And if that's the case, well, I don't understand why owners do that. I don't understand why the front offices do that. Because if you want a World Series, what's the goal of the next season? Is to repeat, to be able to do it again and build competitive atmosphere and environment. You have that with Texas and a division that is considered wide open because the Astros, I said, they're older. They're an older team still. The Mariners, nobody trusts the Mariners to really do anything in the AL West. The Angels are a dumpster fire, and the Oakland A's are even worse of a dumpster fire. So this division is so for the taking for the Rangers. If you continue the competitive atmosphere that you have and spend a little bit more money, go bring in Montgomery, you can be solidifying yourself as an AL West champion for years as the Astros continue to get older and have to do the roster turnover themselves.
KG, and I have no idea if you would even know the answer to this. But let's talk a little baseball finances. Does the extra income and the extra revenue that is being generated by making the playoffs and getting home games in these playoff series and potentially making World Series runs and getting revenue from that, doesn't that somewhat help offset what you just said? Like, we spent this last year. If we can even get back into the AL Championship Series this year, we're going to be bringing in that, you know what I mean? Like, isn't that kind of part of the process, or is it not as much as I'm thinking it is?
So yes and no. So, and it's a great question, and I've done so much research over the years because my goal one day is to also be in a front office. Once I'm done coaching, I want to be in a front office. So I've done a lot of research and a lot of communicating with people in the front offices over the years. So at this point of the year, and really I'll kind of paint out the picture. When the calendar turns and we're in January, by mid-January, you have the front offices start meeting with each other. And they start, and really it's the business side, the baseball operations business side, along with the financials of the stadium and all the revenue that happens there, along with the people, the accountants. And they plan out here's our payroll, here's our player payroll, here's our expenses, here's our budget for everything that we need to do. And our player budget on top of the budget that we're going to have for the stadium and whatnot. And we have a goal saying, okay, we have this much open money for spending on players. When the season goes on, so let me put it this way, because I know the Braves very well. Braves usually stay around when the season starts $12 million of open money. And they earmark that later for trade deadline purposes throughout the season. And they want to stay no less than $8 million to around the $12 million mark. Just in case, like I said, if they want to make a trade and they have to bring in some money on top of that, they have that earmark from there. The postseason revenue that comes in is not accounted for in the current season payroll because you don't know if you are going to make the postseason or not. That's extra money you brought in. So the account you make the postseason. So talking about the Rangers, you make the postseason, you make a run in the postseason. Hey, we have our split share. So again, you still have a split share of revenue with the other teams that are in the postseason, along with Major League Baseball. You have a split share that you have to account for. The revenue of the ticket sales and whatnot all gets accounted for, but it's never really included into the payroll until the next season, which we are in right now. But they still have to sit down. So as we're now in that point of 2024, they still sit down and say, well, what's our budget? Well, usually teams don't increase the budget as much to the point where saying, well, we're going to just open spend. Minus your Yankees in the 90s and in the 2000s, because George Steinbrenner didn't care. No, he just he had a blank check no matter who, what, when, where, or why. But in today's era of ownership and they don't have that. They say we still have a budget. Now they may increase payroll to a percentage, a small percentage. Again, go back to the Braves. Braves have been increasing payroll for the last 4 years by about 8 to 15%, and to where they're one of the top 5 or top 7 highest payroll in baseball over the last 5 years. But more times than not, you still sit there and say, we just made that money. We made the postseason money. The owner's going to be like, great, we're going to put that in the bank now. And it's going to just sit and accrue. And if we want to use it, we can use it. But more times than not, we don't want to. So that is accounted for. The payroll revenue is accounted for. But some teams and owners will say, we'll take some of that payroll money, some of that postseason money. We will add a percentage of it into our budget to increase our budget a little bit more. But it's not going to be like, well, hey, we made $20 million in the postseason. That $20 million we're going to go and put now to increase our payroll at that point. That's not how they think, and that's not how that works.
JG, before we get you out of here, we talked about this last time you were here on Monday, and then it magically happened in the time that you were gone. The extension was given to Bobby Witt Jr. He gets 11 years, $288.88 million. Obviously a good deal for him. That is career security right there. Almost $300 million is a lot of money to turn down when it's sitting in front of you on the table. I think by him signing the deal, you can look at it and say he clearly doesn't dislike the Kansas City Royals organization. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have signed it. You can probably look at it and say he's probably pretty content playing in that city and being in that town. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have signed it. But JG, I just don't think he's going to win a lot over the next 11 years. And maybe I can't even say it. I can't even say maybe that's not important to him, because that's what you play baseball for. All through Little League and middle school and high school and college, you want to be in a World Series. You want to contend for championships. You want to have those magical runs. And once you're a professional, you need to, at least to the best of your ability, give yourself an opportunity to do that. And you can't control. There's a lot of things you can't control once you're in the big game itself. But he could control whether or not he locked himself into Kansas City for 11 years, and he chose to do it. So I don't know. Is that a situation where they say, listen, we got a plan. Here's the plan. You're the center of it. And they just say a bunch of nice things to him, and he goes, okay, that makes sense.
Well, yeah, every team's going to do that to their superstar, to the face of the franchise. They're going to say, this is how much we value you. This is how much we love you. This is how much we need you. We want you. I mean, goodness, you're the pretty girl at the dance. Right. So they're going to go and swoon her as much as possible. In this case, they swoon Bobby Witt Jr. Now, again, what I said on Monday with you guys was, if I'm Bobby Witt Jr., what's the plan? I need to know what the plan is. Or when is this rebuild over? I don't want to be in a rebuild. As I said, to use the example, I saw Salvador Perez for the last 5 years play on a team that won 60 games for, in that portion, and he was on a World Series team. And you treated and you dumped the team as quick as possible because, again, you're the small market team that can't sustain. You can't have sustainability financially. but you're just paying that. Now, the question he needs to ask, and I'm sure he probably did, or someone did, I hope someone did, was if you're committing this much money to me, what's the next percentage for the next guy? I need another guy. I need somebody to help me. I need somebody to protect me. I need pitchers. We need pitchers to compete in this division. That is, you're talking about wide open division in the AL West. The AL Central is completely wide open. It is there for the taking for anybody who wants to do it. And if I'm looking at Bobby Witt Jr. sitting there saying, I'm the best player in this division. You just paid me as if I am the best player in this division. So who's next? Who are you bringing in next to help me? What's the next pitcher that you're bringing in? I don't want 45-year-old Zach Greinke to come and lead my rotation for us. I need someone who's going to go in and is going to be a bulldog and help us win games. And that if we have to face Pablo Lopez against the Twins, we can go compete. If we have to face Shane Bieber or Tristan McKenzie for the Guardians, we can have somebody go compete with them. Who's the next guy? What is the plan to rebuild? And I think that this is as well. This is the reason why, I thought more about it since Monday. The Royals are trying to build a new stadium. Mm-hmm. You have to lock up your face of the franchise to put on billboards all over the city, all around the land that you're going to build that new stadium for, and it's the home of Bobby Witt Jr. You know, we talk about, we hear the home that Babe Ruth built, the Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium Babe Ruth built, Fenway. This new stadium is the home that Bobby Witt Jr. built. We needed to have that in marketability and bring in somebody with a face of the franchise to be able to have that stadium for. That's what the Royals did. Now again, and it makes completely 100% sense in the aspect of what the Royals are doing, because they know that money they're going to get back in revenue for the stadium will essentially cover a lot of that payment, the payroll that they're going to be paying for to Junior. But the plan has to be addressed by Bobby. The plan has to be addressed to the front office by Bobby saying, I don't want to be 11 years. I don't want 6 years of the 11 to be rebuilt. When do we get out of this? And the unfortunate side for Bobby, and I haven't seen when the reports as far as when this new stadium is supposed to be built. That might be the timeline when the rebuild is, when they move to this new stadium. Because guess what? We just saw the Rangers do it. They built a new stadium 4 years later, 4 years later, they win a World Series. So that, I hope for his career that's not the case. I hope they do, because the Royals they're young and they're exciting. I think they're going to be a pretty decent team here pretty soon. But right now, there has to be a plan to get out of this rebuild for the sake of Bobby Witt Jr.'s career, and I hope they do it soon.
JG, always a pleasure having you here, sir. We'll see you next week.
Appreciate you, JG.
As always, guys, I appreciate it.
Mo, always a pleasure having JG on the show.
No doubt.
Let's talk a little NBA trade deadline, sir. We got a lot of things swirling, but not a lot of things that are certain. So I'm just going to throw some things at you, and you can simply tell me if you think it should happen or if you think it shouldn't happen. So let's start with the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns, as of this morning, it's reported they are eyeing Miles Bridges. Should it happen or should it not happen?
It shouldn't happen.
No hesitation.
I wouldn't bring that to my franchise.
No hesitation there. How about PJ Washington? The Mavs pivot from Kyle Kuzma, and now they are focusing on PJ Washington.
He's a solid big, can shoot the three, play in the post a little bit, and he's still young. And when you play with Luka, you need spacing, so he fits what they do. They should go after that, pursue that.
According to another report this morning, the Brooklyn Nets are still monitoring the situation with Atlanta Hawks guard DeJounte Murray. Good move for Brooklyn?
Pairing DeJounte Murray with Bridges, it's interesting because they have similar skill sets. My problem with their mindset, the way Brooklyn is doing this, is they're almost the same guy. It's just that Bridges is 6'6" and Murray's like 6'3", 6'4". Neither one of them, Chris, can be the guy. Do you know what I mean? It's not that you're not adding a good player, but you're adding the same player with the same skill set. I don't think that moves the needle for Brooklyn. Put it that way.
Apparently, the Pelicans are also in play for Murray. Do you see him being a better fit with the Pelicans?
I like him with the Pelicans a lot. Yeah, that would be a great move. They have a young guard who's a good defensive on the ball defender, but he's undersized and he's better off as a rotation player. But you bring in DeJounte Murray to go with Ingram, Zion. I like that. I like that a lot.
The 76ers have inquired about bringing in Brogdon from Portland.
They need scoring and firepower off their bench. I guess they're anticipating at some point maybe Embiid will be back. The question I have for Sixer fans is, how far will you fall before he comes back?
Right.
It
started. It started the
right.
fall.
Yes. It right. And look, and it doesn't. It's not going to get better because now Maxi's not 100% healthy. It's so I don't know if the Brogdon deal makes it. I don't think it impacts anything. I think you can get him, but if Embiid's not coming back and Maxi's not healthy, you might be in the 8th spot or in the play-in by the time he comes back.
Yeah, it's not good in 2024 when you've lost to Golden State, twice in a matter of 8 or 9 days.
I think that sums it up because the Warriors are not a good basketball team.
No, not at all. The Jazz are in talks for Bruce Brown.
I don't know why they would do that.
You are not excited about that.
Not even because you know what? The Jazz, Chris, are in NBA purgatory. They're just good enough to not make the playoffs, but not bad enough to be a lottery team. Like, Bruce Brown's not going to move the needle one way or the other. Like, I don't get that at all.
76ers are apparently interested in Drummond.
Yeah, you need depth. And look, if you can stay near 500, Drummond will help you because, look, he is a capable center, a double-double guy. So, yeah, I like the move for the Sixers.
Steve Kerr said yesterday or the day before that the Warriors do not need to make a trade, but there is plenty of speculation around the Warriors centering around two names that were actually a big part of their most recent championship, that, of course, being Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins. Do you see either of them being moved today?
I think Wiggins might get moved, and he actually just came off of playing a great game last night versus the Sixers, but he's been so inconsistent this season. I think the Warriors are maybe going to move off of him and try to add some kind of depth somewhere else in the rotation. A lot of people are talking about Dallas pursuing him. There are teams that are interested in. Milwaukee wants him, and both of those teams need perimeter wing defenders, so I understand why.
In case you missed it, the Detroit Pistons traded Monte Morris to the Timberwolves. Good fit in there in Minnesota?
That is a great fit. That is exactly what they needed. They have an older veteran point guard, Mike Conley. You bring in Monte Morris, who's a veteran, but he's younger. I think Monte Morris is around 28, 29. That's a perfect fit.
All right, Mo, we got lots of trade deadline stuff happening. It's going to pick up as the day goes on. It's not even 10 a.m. here on the East Coast, so that's going to be a lot of conversation for us tomorrow. But let's pivot. A lot of rumors. Let's pivot a little bit. Let's get back to some NFL stuff. Rex Ryan. We all know Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan, who's been a broadcaster for the last 6 years. He has interviewed for the defensive coordinator position with the Dallas Cowboys, which could be a story within itself, Mo. But I would argue the bigger story is that Dallas is only interviewing defensive coordinator candidates with head coaching experience in the NFL. The other two big names rumored for that position are Ron Rivera, who was the coach for Washington and before that Carolina, and Mike Zimmer, who found success in Minnesota as a head coach and a couple of other spots. If you're Mike McCarthy this morning and you just see Jerry bringing in all these former NFL head coaches to add to your staff as your defensive coordinator, are you feeling a certain way about it?
I am.
I would be. I would be feeling a certain way about it.
Because these guys all have huge presence, right? And Rex Ryan doesn't just have a big presence. He's got a big personality too, right? Like, I can actually see Rex Ryan yelling at Mike McCarthy on the sideline, "Get your offense in order." You know what I mean? Like don't worry about the damn defense. And when you do that, and these guys all have head coaching experience, don't you feel uneasy? Like, is this one of those things like they're hedging, like making a move? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we talked about this before. Why are my guys going to talk to Rex Ryan? You know what I mean? Like, everybody's going to him and not to me. Yeah, I would, if he's got any sway, which I'm sure he doesn't, I'd be like we don't really need those guys. Like, I've got a couple of guys in mind that I want to just promote from within, and they're probably like, no, we're gonna go in another direction. Like, I think Mike McCarthy feels very uncomfortable right now.
Well, I got a story for you. You remember Paxton Lynch?
Yes.
Quarterback. He was drafted by the Denver Broncos. Obviously, it was a failed experiment in Denver. He was supposed to be the replacement for Peyton Manning. Did not work out so well. He had a couple of other stops in the NFL. He's currently in the league still, but never really resurfaced as a starting quarterback outside of the opportunity that he was given in Denver. Interesting story came out this week as we head into the Super Bowl, and then we start gearing up for the draft. In the draft where Paxton Lynch was drafted by the Denver Broncos, there was a second team that not only wanted him, but actively and aggressively tried to trade up ahead of Denver to get him.
Wow.
And that was the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs identified Paxton Lynch as their future franchise starting quarterback and aggressively tried to get him. It did not work out. So as a result, that round, they drafted Chris Jones. And then, of course, the following NFL draft, they draft Patrick Mahomes after the trade with the Buffalo Bills. Had that trade worked out, the Kansas City Chiefs would not have Chris Jones, and they would not have Patrick Mahomes.
And they would not have Paxton Lynch right now. That's crazy.
Sometimes, Mo, it's the trades you don't make, right?
100%.
It's the trades you don't make, because not only, I'm not saying Patrick wouldn't have found success in whatever other team he ended up on. Who knows?
Oh, I think he would have.
But man, what does Andy Reid's career look like at that point?
Is Andy Reid in the NFL at that point?
I don't know.
Like, because now you're talking about Paxton Lynch. Like I said, how
they probably would have gave him 2 seasons, realized he wasn't it. They probably would have drafted someone going into his 3rd season and made it a competition. And depending on who they drafted, maybe the rookie starts, or maybe Paxton starts and gets benched halfway through his 3rd season, and then he's done. And now you're rolling with whoever the draft pick, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how secular the NFL quarterback cycle is. They're going to give you into at least year 2, unless you're an abject failure, but you're going to get year 2. And then if year 2 doesn't pan out, they're probably going to draft your replacement heading into year 3, but they'll still give you a chance to compete for it because they spent that much on you 2 years ago. But at that point, Patrick's gone. So that ship has sailed, and Andy's going into year 3 with 2 years of Paxton Lynch, probably not making the playoffs, definitely not winning Super Bowls, and you're probably on to your next quarterback at some point during that 3rd season, and maybe Andy's done after that season. Maybe after that 3rd season, Kansas City's like, listen, it didn't work with Lynch. The results didn't look great with quarterback B. It's time to make a change. 3 years in a row, no playoffs. That's crazy, though.
But it's crazy, Chris, but that could have very well happened. Like you said, it's the trades or the moves sometimes you don't make. Andy Reid's career trajectory could have been like, it could have just tanked. We would have been saying like, wow, he had his most success with the Eagles, and he did have some success, but he never actually won a Super Bowl. For it to end the way it could have ended versus where he's at now, where they're trying to win ring number 3. They've been to multiple Super Bowls, and he's considered one of the great all-time coaches. And if he were to win another ring and maybe stick around for another attempt at one, who knows how far up the ladder he goes when it's all said and done. That's the crazy thing about that. Look, I know the mugs are coming, but I'm just saying Mahomes and Reed married that quarterback and that coach, and it's been a great relationship.
Before we
versus
get out of
Paxton
here,
Lynch, where they would have got an annulment. They would have got an annulment.
Can you imagine? And this, it's so funny, Mo, because this is a perfect example of it. Kansas City has great talent evaluators. They really, really do. And they were sold on Paxton Lynch. Their guys that evaluate talent said, hey, this is the guy. Let's go get him. And the organization said, okay, we're on board. Let's go get him. And they just didn't have an offer that was good enough to go and get him. So it just shows you that that's how hard this is. There is, and then you look at Caleb Williams and you're like, is he? Is he that? He's good. We can tell with our eyeballs that he's good. Right. But is he Andrew Luck, Joe Burrow? Is he that good?
Right,
I don't know. And you look at good teams that make mistakes, and you're just like, how could they be so right about Patrick Mahomes, who you looked at in college and you were like, man, like this kid's just out here because he's athletic and he's big and he can throw the ball deep, but he can't do anything. He can't even get his footwork right. Every other play, his feet are going every which way. He's throwing the ball at weird arm angles. Like, yeah, sure. Every now and then you're like, whoa. But for most of it, you're just like, who is coaching him? But Kansas City said, no, it's there. And we can polish it and we can bring out the best. But they're the same people the year before that said Paxton Lynch is the guy.
And don't forget, I remember Paxton Lynch. He was something like 6'6".
Tall guy.
240. Real tall guy, about 6'6", 6'7". He was going to be a bigger, more physical, stronger arm Peyton Man. He is what they call a combine baby. Like if you just looked at his combine workout and all the things that he can do, this guy is going to be the guy. And you can, like you said, you can just get it wrong so easy. It's not always as easy as, okay, we've analyzed him, we've worked him out. This guy's going to be a star. It doesn't always pan out that way. It doesn't. Like you said, everything they said about Mahomes that was negative, those same guys that wanted Lynch looked at Mahomes and goes, no, God, no, I see something. There's an it there. This guy is going to be unique. He's going to be special. And here they are going for their third Super Bowl. It's an amazing thing when your front office hits on a pick. And on the flip side, when you miss, it just destroys your fan base.
I mean,
you just crumble.
It's not even an exaggeration, Mo. The not getting Paxton Lynch gave them 6 AFC championship games.
Correct.
That is the immediate trade-off. If you get Paxton Lynch, you just lost. And they don't know it, obviously. But you just lost 6 AFC title games in a row. That is, and I know that not every situation is this high leverage,
for sure.
But this decision was 6 AFC championship games, beginning in the very near future right after that. So it's incredible how much these decisions actually impact more than we actually realize. All right, great show here, Mo. Close us out, sir.
Thank you guys in the chat. We appreciate all your support. Thank you, everybody that tuned in for Chris and I Live. Check out all the great content that we have to offer at Sports Empire Network. Check out the Empire.
You better be back here tomorrow morning. We are making our picks. We are breaking down the entire Super Bowl. We're deciding, well, I'm making my pick. I think I know where Mo's going, but who knows? Maybe he'll wake up this morning and tomorrow morning and change his mind. You won't know unless you're here to hear it. So we will see you tomorrow morning. Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show powered by Sports Empire Network, and we'll see you in the morning.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face.
Oh, I'm from Brooklyn.
Hey,